Time now for business with Kate Moody. Kate, the Suez Canal remains blocked by a grounded ship.
Yeah, and the ripples are really being felt across the globe. The MV Ever Given is one of the biggest container ships in the world. It ran aground in the Suez Canal early on Tuesday morning after strong winds and a dust storm blew it off course. Now, we've got some satellite images which show just how the position of this huge ship is really blocking other boats from passing through there. Vessels are being held up on both sides of the canal as tugboats work to free it. The Suez Canal is a hugely strategic waterway which drastically cuts travel time between Europe and Asia. Otherwise, ships have to sail around South Africa. More than 10% of global trade passes through it each year. That's about $1 trillion worth. Even once the passage is cleared, analysts say the traffic could be disrupted for days.
15,000 ships use it a year. It's about 50 ships a day, so it's absolutely key. So you get something like this, a ship effectively blocking it, you actually really are blocking that trade flow. It shows you how fragile the global supply chains can be at times. And as we rely on shipping to deliver all that medical equipment, the fuel, the food, the other supplies, this is quite a critical moment.
Well, that blockage has sparked some concerns about shipments of crude oil. Oil prices have risen sharply in response. The international benchmark Brent crude trading at about $63.98 per barrel. US WTI just under 61 there. A choppy session on Wall Street has seen the Dow Jones and S&P 500 give up their earlier gains to close lower. The tech-heavy Nasdaq losing over 2% at the closing bell. Higher oil prices did give a boost to energy stocks. Shares of Intel, meanwhile, dropped 2% after announcing plans to build 2 new chip factories. Earlier, we saw a mixed, fairly muted close for the major European indices, despite new data showing an unexpected jump in business activity for the Eurozone in the month of March. The EU decision to tighten restrictions on exports of COVID-19 vaccines has sparked controversy. The measures are likely to most affect AstraZeneca, which produces its vaccine at 2 English factories, as well as a plant in each Belgium and the Netherlands. Pfizer has warned that its production requires free movement of materials between the UK and EU as well. It's not yet clear how the controls will affect doses that are earmarked for developing nations. Since the end of January, the European Union has exported a total 43 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. About a quarter of them have gone to the UK, which itself has not shipped any doses produced on its soil to the EU. Canada has received 6.6 million European-made doses, Japan 5.4, and Mexico nearly 4.5 million doses. Brussels says it has granted 380 export requests to 33 different destinations and blocked just one shipment destined for Australia. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Washington could impose sanctions on companies that are involved in the Nordstrom 2 natural gas line. While visiting Brussels, he reaffirmed the Biden administration's opposition to that pipeline, which would ship natural gas from Russia to Germany. Some companies have already left the project to avoid any potential sanctions. Germany continues its push for the completion. The U.S. and some Eastern European countries worry that Nord Stream would increase Russia's influence in Europe. Well, Blinken has also vowed to continue working with European allies to confront China. On Monday, the US, EU, UK, and Canada froze assets and imposed travel bans on a group of Chinese officials over alleged human rights abuses in Xinjiang province. Beijing has retaliated with sanctions of its own, but that could derail a lucrative investment deal which it struck with Brussels last year. Claire Rush reports.
During his first official trip to Brussels, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pushed ahead with the key goal of the Biden administration, forming a united front against China on issues ranging from human rights to trade.
The onus is really going to be on China to demonstrate that the pledges it's made on forced labor, on state-owned enterprises, on subsidies are not just talk.
Blinken says the U.S. won't force allies into an us or them choice with China. But the EU's decision to impose sanctions on Chinese officials in a coordinated move with the U.S., UK, and Canada is already affecting its ties with Beijing, especially regarding the Comprehensive Agreement on Investment, or CAI. Approved in December, the pact would allow European companies greater access to Chinese markets, particularly in manufacturing, which makes up more than half of EU investment there. EU firms would gain increased access to sectors including electric cars and telecoms. Some Chinese laws discriminating against foreign investors would be eased. Forced technology transfers would be banned, and some requirements that companies operate as part of joint ventures with Chinese partners would be lifted. In exchange, Beijing would have increased access to EU markets in manufacturing and renewable energy. The deal, however, is now under threat. The European Parliament now saying it may not ratify it, as diplomatic ties take a turn for the worse.
Food delivery service Deliveroo is set to begin trading shares on the London Stock Exchange next week, and it could be valued at up to 10 billion euros. But a major investing firm says it won't take part in that IPO because of concerns about workers' rights. Aviva investors said it believed riders for Deliveroo should receive a minimum wage, sick leave, and holiday pay. Deliveroo and similar platforms argue that they offer flexibility for workers in the so-called gig economy. They are, though, facing growing pressure around the world. Uber last week said it would reclassify drivers in the UK as employees after a ruling by the British Supreme Court, and activists hope it could be a turning point. Finally, economists and businesses alike say that vaccines hold the key to putting the pandemic behind us, and one food chain in the US is trying to sweeten the deal even further. Krispy Kreme has said it will give a free donut to any customer showing their vaccine card every day for the rest of the year. That's a theoretical $450 worth of sweet treats if you're adding up there. The brand says it wants to do its part to get life back to normal in the U.S. There is a caveat for those who are unwilling or unable to get vaccinated. They can show up to stores on Mondays through the month of May to explain their decision and get a free coffee and donut. Obviously just a really purely commercial stunt here, Yenna, but it does show just how anxious businesses and members of the public, of course, are to move on.
Indeed, and you're making me very hungry there. Thank you so much, Kate, for your business updates.